Hey guys, what is going on? So I just wanted to address a question that I get very frequently about ecdysterone slash turkesterone, and answer a couple questions actually. So this first one, I've probably gotten this question more in the past couple of weeks than any other question, and that is, do you need to cycle turkesterone slash ecdysterone? And I would say the short answer is no, as far as I know. I personally have been taking turkesterone since late 2020, and it is almost June. And I'm still seeing positive results from taking this stuff. Now, how much can I attribute to turkesterone or ecdysterone? It's hard to say, but, I very much think that I've seen results. I think I continue to see those beneficial results to this day, and I have been on it for way longer than what people would perceive as a cycle. So I've heard people say, cycle it 4 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. Obviously, I've been on it way longer than either of those. And in fact, when I started to take turkesterone, for the first month, even though my diet and my training and everything I think was on point, it took me about a month to see anything. So if you're going to do a 4-week cycle, you might not even experience anything. And I think a lot of people will write this stuff off because they try it for 4 weeks, or they do a low dosage or whatever else. And I think it needs time to really start to see it. And I compare this to creatine. And I got into a conversation with somebody in the comments about this, and they were saying I was comparing apples to oranges. The reality of the situation is that creatine is probably the most researched supplement, other than probably caffeine, in all of bodybuilding and, strength training and stuff. And people will still to this day, and it was something that I heard a lot when I first started taking creatine about 10 years ago or so, was that you need to cycle on and off creatine, which is just simply not true, or you need to have a loading phase, which is also not true. And just like creatine, a lot of these, substances take a while to start working. And I just think that the idea behind needing to cycle every single supplement is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't know 100% for a fact if you don't need to cycle this, but I would lean on that. If somebody knows more about this, Derek or Megan or somebody knows, but I have not heard anybody say that you need to cycle it other than just random people in the comments. And I think this is just consistent with what people do with every single supplement. So I would say no. Obviously, from my experience, it doesn't seem to be the case. And I would say that overall, if you can afford to do so, it's probably better to just lower your dosage and just stay on it. And that kind of is a segue into another question, which is, do you keep your gains when you get off it? So I personally briefly was off of turkesterone because I had injuries that made me pretty much immobile. For those of you who don't know, I just had some random hip injury, and I pretty much couldn't walk. So obviously was not training. I was not taking turkesterone at the time for obvious reasons, and I lost some of my strength, obviously. Now, my strength dipped to well below where it was at prior to, turkesterone. So that is just, me not being in the gym. Makes sense. I regained that strength. And, you could say that I lost my gains, but I think that was more so due to, not being in the gym. So I would say it's probably pretty consistent with what you would expect if you were to hop on anything and see some performance enhancing benefits. The whole concept of Nucleus Overload, which is a training practice that I use, is that you are trying to build those myonuclei to be able to build more muscle in the future. That is something that, Derek talks about in terms of, if you were on PEDs in the past, you bank up those myonuclei, and therefore you can actually have more muscle building benefits long after you stop taking PEDs. So I would say at the very least you are going to bank those nuclei up, and therefore have ability to retain that muscle and strength as well in the future. Now, will you hold on to 100% of that? Probably not. I don't really know. I at some point might cycle off this stuff, but I don't plan to anytime soon. I plan to continue taking the stuff that I have, and If there are other people who have stopped taking it and, you know, they've lost their gains, please comment. Or if you stopped taking it and you kept your gains, please comment. But that is something that I cannot confidently say one way or another. But I would say, at the very least, if you're on it for a while, just like with creatine, like if you bank up some results on creatine over years and then you get off it, yeah, you might lose a little bit of strength from being off of creatine, but you probably, you know, built a lot of muscle and strength in that process, and you should keep the vast majority of that. So that would be my answer to that. Both of those questions. Obviously, as I kind of reiterate, I am not the expert on this subject. I am just somebody who is experimenting. Obviously, I get a lot of input on this stuff in terms of Turk and Ecdy because I get a lot of you guys, you know, commenting, DMing, stuff like that. So I know a little bit, but I'm not the expert. And at the end of the day, people have to experiment for themselves. So in short, I would say no, you don't need to cycle it. And I would say yes, you keep your gains, but maybe not, you know, 100%, because obviously there are performance enhancing benefits to being on it. So if you are not on it at that time, you might see a little bit of a drop, but I would think that you would keep your gains. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated, and I'll talk to you soon.